So this is session 5 of being a follower of Jesus, and I'm calling it Our Allegiance. In Matthew 22, we have the story of a group of religious leaders out to try and trap Jesus. They thought they'd come up with the absolutely perfect plan. He couldn't find an answer to this question that wouldn't incriminate him with someone. The people of that time had to pay a tribute tax to Rome, and it was a very contentious issue. And a lot of the Jewish people said, we shouldn't pay this, we don't pay tribute to Rome. And so they asked Jesus the question, well, should we or should we not pay the tax? Knowing that if he said, well, no, don't pay it, then he could be arrested by the Romans. And if he said, yes, pay it, then he would lose a lot of popular support. So they thought they really had him trapped. And it's interesting too that the people who came asking the questions were two different groups who were totally opposed to each other. But at this point they combined to ask this question of Jesus. And Jesus' response was, okay, has anyone got a coin? And they did. It was a denarius, a little silver coin. They handed it to Jesus and he said, well, whose image is on this coin and whose inscription? And of course they said, well, Caesar's. And it had on one side an image of Caesar, and on the other side was written, Tiberius Caesar, Augustus, son of the deified Augustus, chief priest. Now the Emperor Augustus was actually Julius Caesar's nephew Octavian. If you know your history, he defeated Mark Antony and taken over as emperor. But not long after he'd taken over, he decided that he was a god, that he should be worshipped. And so he changed his name to Augustus, which simply means the divine one. So this coin, I find it very ironic, I guess, that here the true Son of God was holding up a coin which was a tribute to a Son of God. But Jesus' answer avoided the trap. He said, well, you give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and you give to God what belongs to God. But it wasn't just a clever answer. It was actually a very important answer. The coin bore Caesar's image, and so it belonged to him and should be given back to him. And really, why shouldn't they pay tax when they enjoyed a lot of what Rome provided, like roadways, a freedom from invasion, all sorts of good things that Rome provided. So pay your tax. But he said, give to God what belongs to God. Now in Genesis 1:27 it says, so God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female, he created them. And so while the coin bore the image of Caesar, we bear the image of God. And if we are to give to God what belongs to God, then we are to give ourselves. We live in that tension today of what is rightful to give our government and what we cannot give. In the days of the early church, the Christians faced this much more than we do, because they were commanded to hail Caesar as a god, and when they refused to do that, many of them were martyred. Our allegiance to God is first. If it clashes with what our society or government demands, then we are called to stand firm for Jesus. Jesus calls us to be disciples with a passion and a desire to be like him. If we don't have this, then really we just become like the rest of the world, but with a different God.
Jesus. will that I am free, for it's only your will that I am free. Jesus, oh, for Jesus, all I am and ever hope to be. All of my ambitions, hopes, and plans, I surrender these into your hands. All of my ambitions, hopes, and plans, I surrender these into your hands. For it's only your